that was the best version of what that fight could have possibly been. And I want to start out by saying Conor McGregor deserves enormous credit. He is an exceptional fighter, Even among champions, he stands out. And what stood out to me for Conor, the boxer, is, first of all, he's making his pro debut against one of the best fighters ever. I'm going to get to the age stuff and everything in a second. And he's early on doing enough to stay in the fight. That's amazing. Even the fact that he went 10 rounds in his pro debut is amazing. And how is he able to have any success at all? He is not only incredibly determined with a huge heart and athletic. By the way, when you see one fighter get around another fighter, as Conor did to Floyd, he was, and like actually step behind him, that means that his feet are faster. It means he's younger or at least more athletic. That's a huge thing. Conor's athletic, energetic, determined. His preparation is clearly there. But more than anything, Stephen A., it's his fighting brain. Conor McGregor, as most great fighters have, has an extremely high fighting IQ. It's the reason he didn't really hit Mayweather with anything hard. He didn't load up on any punches. He had the uppercut in the first round, and he hit him maybe, I know I said he would not even land a glove on Mayweather, not a clean punch. And I have a lot of people on Twitter saying, he landed 111 punches. No, he didn't. But Conor did land about 10 or a dozen punches over the course of 10 rounds, which is actually more than most fighters land cleanly against Mayweather. Jabs and body punches included. Those are punches. 10 or 12, maybe 2 or 3 of them had a little something on them, but basically they were quick-handed arm punches. In boxing, that means you don't get your body behind them. Because Conor is smart enough to know if I try to load up on something, I'm not going to hit Floyd. So he quick punched him. He used his speed and hit him with arm punches. There was nothing on the punches. Floyd really gave him the first 3 rounds because Floyd didn't punch in the first 3 rounds. He was just kind of walking McGregor down, and then starting in the 4th round, he started fighting, and that was the end of the fight. The fight wasn't, once Floyd started fighting in the 4th round, the fight was over. And that was the fight I expected to see from the beginning, from the 4th round on. But Floyd thought, clearly, this guy's never, it's a pro debut, he's going to gas, and then I'll knock him out, which is what happened. That said, what we saw was Conor McGregor's exceptional quality as a fighter on the one hand, and Floyd Mayweather's age secondarily. I don't want to take any credit away from Conor, so I'm going to focus on that. But also, Floyd at the age of 40 has to stop fighting. Because, Stephen A., and I know you've mentioned this, and you're 100% right. There are a lot of young fighters, several at least, who would have knocked Floyd out last night, on Saturday night. I know he wouldn't have fought them the exact same way, but that Floyd doesn't go the distance with Terrence Crawford, may not with Errol Spence. There are a bunch of young guys who would have beaten him up that night. That's enough. He's retiring at the perfect time. So the big takeaway from me is that was the best version of the fight it could have been. I was wrong to say Conor wouldn't land a punch. He landed several actual punches cleanly. He won a few rounds early when Floyd hadn't started fighting yet, which is amazing to me. And then ultimately didn't really have a chance to win the fight, and Floyd won in the way he did, partly because he's an older, flat-footed fighter now.
One thing I'll give Floyd credit for is that Conor McGregor came into the fight, if known for nothing else, his power. The power that he packed in his punches. Yes, it was going to be 8-ounce gloves as opposed to the 4-ounce gloves that he wears in the UFC, but to still get into the ring and to walk straight at him for the first few rounds the way that Floyd Mayweather did, I give him credit for that because he said, I'm going to get hit. I'm supposed to get hit. I want to test his power. And it seemed like Floyd was trying to make sure that Conor McGregor punched himself out, that ultimately he would get gassed, not just because of his legs, but because of the punches that he was throwing. And clearly that appeared to be the case. Floyd did not look great as far as I'm concerned. He's absolutely correct in that he should retire. He shouldn't be fighting anymore because there's a host of young fighters that would have beaten that Floyd Mayweather that showed up Saturday night. In the case of Conor McGregor, he deserves a whole lot of credit. His moxie, his courage, he's got the heart of a lion. He's got a champion's heart. He's not scared of anything, wasn't even scared to beat up. I actually thought that the fight was stopped prematurely. I thought it was one of those situations where if it were against a boxer, even though we're talking about a boxing match and we're talking about boxing rules, if it were against a boxer, you can sit up there and stop that fight if you're referee Bird. Why? Because you're a boxer. You know the rules and regulations. You're incredibly familiar with it.
And
you
we'll
can't
get
find
into
yourself
that in the next topic as well.
Yes. And you can't find yourself in the position that McGregor was in. But at the same time, because it was McGregor, a UFC fighter, let him go out on this shield to a lesser degree. I personally would have believed that. But when I looked at McGregor, I saw a guy that had a lot of heart, that caught Floyd with a few good punches early on, but from that point forward was just pity-pat shots, was hanging his right arm out there and just knocking it down, and wasn't really throwing any punches. I thought his defense was relatively poor, and that's just the way that I looked at it. What I peeled from the fight is that, again, Floyd finds a way to figure you out and beat you, and that's what he did. He's like a computer in the ring. That's what he did against Conor McGregor. I was surprised that it lasted as long as it did. I thought that if Floyd was sharper with his right hands, I thought Conor McGregor would have gone out earlier, like in round 6, like I had predicted. But I think it went as long as it went because Floyd was incredibly sloppy compared to the Floyd Mayweather that I've been watching for years. He was not nearly as crisp. And maybe it's because he didn't spar as much. Maybe it's because he was telling the truth when he said he was out partying and stuff like that leading up to the fight. Maybe he was telling the truth when he said he didn't train rather with the same fervor that he's known for training in the past. Maybe it's all of those things, but he clearly didn't look like himself.